Elliott Topuria just knocked out the greatest featherweight of all time in what was a pretty good pay-per-view. My name is Angelo. This is We Want Picks. Let's go ahead and recap UFC 298. Before we talk about the fights, let's talk about the bets. Overall, the bets were fantastic. I'm up units. Jacob is up units. The premium member safety parlay hit. That is 9 in a row. I gave you 73% ROI. Jacob gave you 20% ROI. His underdog lock of the week did miss, but this card had 11 out of 12 favorites winning. Overall, a phenomenal night as far as bets are concerned. Here's a little bit of a closer look at that safety parlay. I am very proud of this safety parlay. I've hit 11 of the last 12. I have hit 9 in a row. That's an all-time win streak for me. The previous was 8. We broke that last night. Last night's safety parlay was the over 2.5 rounds on the Maverick fight and the over 2.5 rounds on the Miranda fight. I'll tell you, I was sweating the Miranda one. I was sweating that one. They dropped each other in the first round, and I was like, oh my God. All of a sudden, Miranda's going to get a finish here. But we'll talk about that fight in a second. If you want to unlock the premium member safety parlay for UFC Mexico and all the cards, go to WeWantPicks.com, click Become a Member. It's only $10 a month, and that premium membership includes everything, not just the safety parlay. So unlock that. Give yourself a fighting chance at UFC Mexico. That was so cheesy. Let's go ahead and talk about the fights, though. How good is Miranda Maverick? Because my breakdown going into this week was Miranda's going to win this fight. I think she gets it to the ground. But if this ends up a striking-only fight, she might be in a little bit of trouble. And she wasn't. You could argue she did better striking than grappling. Andrea Lee tossed Miranda Maverick. Just picked her up and tossed her. But in the striking, Miranda seemed to control the pace. She was moving forward. She had an unbelievable step-in jab elbow. I mean, she looked good. The progress that Miranda Maverick has made on her feet is absolutely incredible. And that's what you'd like to see. She's 20-something, so young, up-and-coming fighters improving in each fight. That's what you're supposed to see. We'll talk about a fighter that's not improving. But Miranda Maverick looked fantastic. What we don't know is how good is she? Because even though she's having success striking, her instincts still kick in and she looks to grapple. There were plenty of times where she was dominating the striking. Then she did that little duck understep in, ends up halfway behind Andrea Lee, then creates a scramble that isn't necessary, and now she ends up fighting for her life. She ended up on bottom a few times. I think it was 3 takedowns to 3 takedowns or something to that effect. The takedown line was very interesting here. Andrea Lee had plenty of success in the grappling. That is her 4th loss in a row. She's probably going to be cut here. Typical Andrea Lee fight. Super tough, some success, just can't get that extra inch, can't make that extra bit of progress to get the win. But Miranda Maverick looked very good. She is definitely one of the better prospects in this division. If we didn't see Jazzy DeVicious sort of piece her up on the feet, then it'd be very interesting to see what Miranda's next fight would be. I think they should give her a Tracy Cortez and see how that looks, because her striking is very good. So now if she can hang with Tracy Cortez in the striking and then defend takedowns instead of trying to get some of her own, all of a sudden Miranda Maverick is a real deal. So I am curious to see how good she actually is. I'm curious to see what her next fight is, but Miranda Maverick is improving at an incredible pace. Danny Barlow, also insane. This fight was straight up accuracy versus toughness. Danny Barlow was like laser pinpoint accurate in his strikes. He absolutely lit up Josh Quinlan. If you look at Josh Quinlan's face right there, just look at his face. The beating that guy took was insane, and he was still marching forward, throwing bombs, trying to make something happen. So let's give Josh Quinlan some credit for how tough he is, and then let's give Danny Barlow credit for how insanely accurate this guy is. He's lightning fast. He makes things happen. He does get hit occasionally, but it's hard to avoid every single punch coming your way when the guy in front of you is Josh Quinlan and you're lighting him up, but he's still moving forward. At a certain point, defense is what it's going to be. You can't bob and weave every single punch when there's somebody in front of you just eating and throwing. But Danny Barlow looked fantastic, had some very, very nice moments in that fight, and obviously put away the insanely tough Josh Quinlan. The most impressive part about this, we talk about this a lot with fights, but the most impressive part about this is that finish wasn't in the first round. It was in the 3rd. So Danny Barlow carried his composure, carried his power, carried his accuracy, and carried everything he does into the 3rd round and finished it there. He's not a first-round robust kind of guy. And that's incredible. Looking forward to see what Danny Barlow does in the future. This is what happens when you go to bed at 2 and wake up at 5. Danny Barlow, let's see what happens to him in the future and what the next couple of fights look like. Because again, this guy looked absolutely incredible against a dangerous, tough Josh Quinlan. What the hell was Carlos Vera doing? Listen, it's 2024. The Royce Gracie days are over. And that's not a slight to Royce Gracie. He basically invented this sport. If you don't know the history of the UFC started as an advertisement for Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. It was an advertisement. The Gracie Jiu-Jitsu gym, I forget the name officially, but the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu gym was trying to recruit people to say, hey, Jiu-Jitsu is the best martial art on the planet. It doesn't matter how big you are. It doesn't matter if you're strong. You can beat anybody in a fight if you do Jiu-Jitsu. So they set up the very first UFC. Gracie set up the very first UFC, and they said, who is the scrawniest, the dorkiest, most unathletic one of us? And they looked at Royce, and they're like, you. So they sent him out there, and they said, bring your toughest, your best fighters in the world, and he'll fight them. We'll set up a tournament. We'll see who wins. And that's what it was. It was literally an advertisement for the Gracie gym. They took the scrawniest one, threw him out there, let him win, and they're like, see, we told you. Jiu-Jitsu's the best. And it was. And it still is, obviously, insanely effective and insanely important. But the days of rolling around like a child, tumbling class, just on your diving at legs backwards to try to get a Hail Mary submission, those days are gone. That shit does not work anymore. How somebody like Carlos Vera, how the Ryan Halls of the world, actually Ryan Hall's got decent striking, but how those people end up in the UFC today, I understand 15 years ago, even 10 years ago, 5 years ago, maybe. I understand. The sport is a new sport. It's only 30 years old. Compare that to baseball, which is generations old. Football, generations old. I mean, it's a new sport. It's continuing to evolve. But I don't know how somebody can just only be rolling around for the most ridiculous, low success rate moves can be signed and get paid by the most premier fight organization on planet Earth. And you know what? If he's getting the brakes beat off of him and it's the third round and it is what it is, you got to try what you got to try, then yeah, start rolling for ankles and rolling for knees and doing whatever nonsense you were doing. But that was plan A. It's like it's the only thing they did in training. Okay, he's going to come in and then you just immediately roll over your own shoulders and try to grab something. It was ridiculous. It was ridiculous. He should be cut. Like, it's honestly, it's embarrassing for the sport. Let me know if you think I'm being too harsh, but I think it's embarrassing for the sport. You have a major pay-per-view. You're bringing in all sorts of new eyes. Not the people that watch our videos every week. Those are people who actually care about this sport, right? Who watch the sport every week, no matter how trash the main event is. But this is a pay-per-view. This is a great main event, a great co-main event, a great feature fight. This was a very good card. So you get all sorts of new eyes, people coming together. I had my neighbor come over. He watched the fights, and he's one of those guys that'll watch the pay-per-views. And thank God he didn't watch the prelims, because let's say he showed up for the prelims. Oh, what'd you cook, Big Ange? Let's have a drink. Let's eat. I made gyros. They were unbelievable. Let's watch the prelims. And then he sees this grown-ass baby rolling around for God knows what reason. It's embarrassing. It's a black eye for the sport. Claudio Puelles is fighting next weekend. And if he does this bullshit, cut them all. Cut them all. This is where the term Jiu Jitsu Nerd came from. It's the nerdiest, weirdest way of fighting. Rinya Nakamura, good for you. I wish you were a little busier and put that bum away, because, I mean, that was pathetic. This is a live look. I give Carlos Vera a hard time, but he did train his ass off. Here's a live look at his training regimen. I mean, he really went after it. Just every day, woke up, went to tumbling class, and rolled. And just roll over my head, roll over my back, roll over my left shoulder, my right shoulder. I'll find the knee. I'll find the knee. Just keep doing it. Keep rolling. What an absolute joke. The other joke of it all, I don't know if you watch this fight with your commentary on. Joe Rogan's got to go, man. I've seen every single UFC ever since they were on. I watched them live. Giant, massive UFC fan since day one. Joe Rogan gives you the warm and fuzzies on the inside when you hear his voice, because it reminds you of the days of Rico Rodriguez and Tito Ortiz and just those days of UFC when it was only pay-per-views and it was one a month and you had to wait a whole month for a monster card. It just reminds you of that. Just nostalgia dripping. But now the problem is that has evolved. Now you have DC being hilarious, cracking jokes, and knowing what he's watching. And then you got Joe Rogan obsessing over weird BJJ nerd shit. Carlos Ferreira was getting pounded on, looking pathetic, like a child. And all Rogan could talk about is, Rinya Nakamura's in trouble here. Rinya Nakamura's in trouble here. Carlos Ferreira right where he wants him. Like, what the hell are you watching? Like, dude, put your BJJ nerd stuff aside. We get it. You love jiu-jitsu, and that's why we love Joe Rogan, because he genuinely loves this sport. He doesn't need to do it for the money. Those days are gone. He loves this sport for everything that it is. But, dude, you got to know that this looks insane. So I think Joe Rogan's done. I think you should cut all those jiu-jitsu nerds. The Rogerio de Lima fight. So a couple of things. One, Junior Tafa. I saw a lot of comments in the YouTube saying the Tafa brothers are overrated in this and that. Maybe they are. I don't know. But you got to give Junior Tafa credit for stepping up like that. The dude was out there to corner his brother. His brother gets hurt, and he's like, well, fuck it. I'll fight. I'll fight for my brother. That was insane. That was incredible. And while Jacob and I were watching live, he was like, De Lima should give Junior 20 grand. Because if Junior doesn't step up, De Lima makes no money, let alone the win bonus, let alone, I don't know if he got a performance of the night bonus, but let alone any of that. He gets no money at all. So Junior is a badass for stepping up like that. There were also a lot of comments when this fight was announced. Somebody wrote out this whole, it was well thought out. It was crazy, but it was well thought out. Somebody wrote this whole comment saying this was the plan all along. Justin faked an injury so that Junior could step up and get paid more money. He's been preparing this whole time, and he's going to knock De Lima out. That's a cool theory. I love a good weirdo theory like that. It's a cool theory. Is that what happened? Or did you get a guy who's not ready for the UFC that got pounded on in the UFC? To Junior's credit, he threw those hands. He bombed. He tried to connect, and he bombed away. He planted his feet, tried to make it happen. What is crazy is Junior Tafa is a high-level kickboxer. He is the more technical and more accomplished kickboxer of the two. But he also has far less power than his brother and no takedown defense whatsoever. So the interesting part here was the line movement. When they announced this fight, when it opened up, we use BetOnline. BetOnline has the earliest lines, maybe the best, maybe not the best. I only check theirs. I don't check everybody's, but they have the earliest lines. Like, they drop fight lines insanely early. Prop bets are on Mondays or Tuesdays. Like, it's crazy. I'll have round lines tonight. Sunday night, I'll have round lines for UFC Mexico. Anyway, they dropped, maybe 2 hours after weigh-ins, they dropped a betting line for Rogerio de Lima versus Junior Tafa. A couple hours after that fight was announced and they weighed in. And Rogerio de Lima opened up at minus 250. Quickly shot up to minus 289. I bet it there. I thought I was a genius. I screenshot the hell out of my bet. I was like, people are going to think I'm lying that I got it at minus 289. I thought I was going to go to minus 500. That's where it should have been. We have a guy stepping up on 24 hours notice who has zero takedown defense whatsoever and not that same power as his brother. I thought that was going to go to minus 500. It collapsed. Rogerio de Lima went down to like minus 140. And then I'm panicking. Then I'm like, oh my God, I messed up. I'm obviously missing something. I'm the idiot here. I messed up. Why is all this money coming in on Junior? And then I see the YouTube comments. Junior Tafa is a top 10 glory kickboxer in the world. He's going to spark. And then I'm like, oh my God, they're right. I'm an idiot. I'm so stupid. And you can clip that part and use it however you'd like. Oh, I'm stupid. And then he went out there, and it was just absolute domination start to finish. 2 leg kicks, that dude's leg was done. Rogerio took him down when he wanted to. It was absolute, just straightforward chaos. But what I don't know is why that line did that. The only thing I could assume is, I think the majority of sports bettors, or specifically UFC bettors, I think people betting on fights are probably less experienced than people who bet on football, for example. It's not a slight to anybody. It's a newer sport. And, football lines are almost impossible. Baseball lines are almost impossible. I mean, that's such big business. They spend a ton of money making sure that those lines are dead on. Where MMA, it's a fist fight and anything can happen. So I do tend to see that in the MMA world, more plus money bets than favorite bets. Everybody's chasing dogs. Everybody's looking for dogs. Everybody's trying to bet that side, get a plus money somewhere. And I have to assume that's what it was. I think people looked at the card like a lot of favorites are going to win here. Then they saw big plus money and they hammered it. Outside of that, I have no idea why money came in at all on Junior. When I broke down Rogerio de Lima versus Justin Tafa, I picked Justin. And then they switched it to Junior, and the first thing I did was bet, the worst bet of all time, odds-wise, but the first thing I did was bet the Bizarre line movement. I don't get it. I assume it was just a pack of hyenas trying to get plus money. The featured prelim was a very interesting fight. Listen, I spent the entirety of last week making negative comments about Mackenzie Dern, right? I talked about her accent, the fake accent. If you guys have yet to see the evolution of Mackenzie Dern's accent video on YouTube, you're missing out. Or you can go to the Twitter. We have the video there. I do recommend, if you're a positive vibes kind of guy and you're not really trying to insult anybody or rain on somebody's parade, I would watch it in reverse. So watch Mackenzie Dern's accent now and then play it backwards to 2016 when she has no accent, and then just congratulate her on how good her English got. That's how I would do it if you wanted to be positive vibes. But I spent the week in talking about Mackenzie's fake accent, talking about how awful, atrocious her wrestling is, and talking about how her striking hasn't gotten better. I'm going to walk some of that back now. First of all, I think Mackenzie Dern won this fight. If I'm a judge, I score this 2-1 for Mackenzie Dern. It clearly came down to the first round. Second round, Limoges had Mackenzie down and out. Any other referee would have stopped this fight. Done. Had her finished. Done. Third round, Mackenzie controlled. For some reason, Amanda Limoges took Mackenzie down, immediately swept. That was stupid. Actually, no. Mackenzie pulled guard in the third. I'm sorry. There was a sweep in there as well. But the first round is what this came down to. The first half of the round was Amanda controlling the striking. The second half was Mackenzie controlling the grappling. If I'm a judge, I score that first round for Mackenzie because she didn't look desperate. I tend to, if you shoot 10 takedowns and only get one, you looked desperate. That one successful takedown doesn't erase the 9 that missed. That's not what happened. Mackenzie Dern ducked and shot a beautiful double and got it and immediately had Amanda Limoges in trouble. Immediately. Yeah, her striking is wide and looping and not good, but she got the takedown, had Amanda in trouble, controlled the hell out of her. I think Mackenzie Dern won that first round. If she wins the first round, she wins this fight. I would have given her the fight. But let's give Mackenzie some credit. First of all, wildly tough. We knew she was tough. We talked about her being tough. That's why I bet the over 2.5 rounds, and I got that at plus money. I believe it was plus 155. You can go back a couple slides. It's there with the odds. I forget what it was. We knew she was tough, but this was tough. I'm pretty sure she broke her orbital bone. When she fell down and grabbed like this, and her eye was like immediately, I'm pretty sure her orbital bone was broken. And then what did she do? She did it she did look for a way out, turned, covered, and the ref let it go. And then she was like, I'm still in this, put it back together, and then kept fighting, kept coming forward. Literally, from the point where she got cracked and dropped on, she won the fight. From that point on, she won the fight, which is crazy to think that she took that beating, was that close to being out, and still put it together and came forward. So Mackenzie Dern, insanely tough. Can we say that Mackenzie improved, though? She did only shoot one takedown, I believe, and it went well. I mean, it was a nice, lowered her level, got it. It looked incredible. The other ground situations were because Limoges took Mackenzie down and then was swept because she's stupid. I don't know why you're taking her down. Like, the success you've had on your feet, why would you take her down? I mean, this decision was a gift. She shouldn't have gotten it. And then in the third round, Mackenzie pulled guard. It's okay to pull guard if, like, I'm losing this fight. I need to do this to win. Okay, fine. But has she actually improved, or did her toughness get her this far? And I don't know the answer. We almost need to see it again. If Mackenzie Dern got knocked out in the second round, like some referees would have, I would argue you should cut her. She makes $200,000 just to show up. $200,000 just to show up. That's a very expensive fighter. And if you're running a business, do you think she brings $200,000 worth of eyes? $200,000 worth of tickets in the seats? $200,000 worth of extra views so they can sell those advertisements? I'd argue she should be cut. I'm not making that argument today. To be that tough, she got robbed, so do her a favor. UFC kept Sam Alvey around for that long after a couple of robberies. So Mackenzie Dern, all the respect in the world for how tough she is. I don't know if I can say she's improved yet because her striking looked horrific. Just charging forward and throwing huge is not good striking. Her striking looked terrible. The one takedown she shot looked absolutely incredible. Excuse me if I'm wrong and she shot more than one, but that first takedown really stood out because I was like, oh, okay. Either way, I think Mackenzie won this fight. Good on both of them. I mean, they fought their asses off. Amanda Lemos kept making mistakes. If Amanda Lemos didn't shoot takedowns and didn't tie up with Mackenzie for some weird reason, then she would have run away with it. She would have absolutely run away with this fight. The striking wasn't even close. But Mackenzie Dern, wildly tough. I didn't see if there was any real damage to her face, meaning if there was an orbital bone broken or no. I didn't see what the official final result of that was, other than just being mongoloidish. But the way she grabbed it, something had to have happened. Listen, Anthony Fluffy Hernandez, also insanely tough. Not like Mackenzie Dern levels tough, or maybe he is. It didn't get that far last night. But what I am curious about Fluffy is, what is his ceiling? Because if you watch that fight last night, objectively, he was not the better fighter. Certainly better at jiu-jitsu, but his takedowns were terrible. Roman Kopylov stopped almost every single take. Like, the takedowns were really bad. Really bad. And he was getting pieced up. His striking is also really bad. He's not fast. He's not strong. Striking's not very good. So he's relying on, let me take my licks, you'll tire, and then I'll start to take over from there. And this is 5 wins in a row. 4 of the 5 are stoppages. But what is the ceiling? And it sucks because I had a bet on Roman Kopylov. I think Roman Kopylov was the consensus underdog of the week. He certainly was on the website. On our website, on WeWantPicks.com, we have the Lock of the Week page where Jacob does his underdog Lock of the Week. This week it was Paulo Costa. We'll talk about that fight. And then we have the community vote on their underdog Lock of the Week. Roman Kopylov ran away with that vote. So everybody was wrong. And early, it looked like that was the right pick. Roman Kopylov was piecing up Anthony. Defended the sloppy takedowns, pieced him up. Couple of really nasty body kicks that had Anthony questioning, what am I doing here? And then he just took his beating, rode it out, smiled. The finish was badass. Just like smiling, knowing, like, I got it. That was badass. And I like watching Fluffy Hernandez. I love it. But what is his ceiling? Toughness, and I don't even want to say cardio. Like, I'll say cardio. I don't want to say pace. He's not Merab. He's not just like non-stop forward pressure pace. He doesn't have an insane pace. He just has very good cardio. And it's the Homer Simpson. He takes his beating, you get tired, and then he takes over. But I don't know what Anthony's ceiling is. It's crazy. We haven't hit it yet. But I do think what's going to happen is they're going to give him like a Brendan Allen. They're going to give him somebody who's got plenty of cardio and a well-rounded skill set, not just a striker with good takedown defense. And all of a sudden, we will see that ceiling. And when he loses, it's going to look, and obviously he's lost before. He's not undefeated. But I think when he loses against one of these higher-ranked guys, it's not going to look great because it is going to be desperate shots that go nowhere. But for now, great fight for him. That was a great win. A lot of people were on the Kopylov side. And the commentators were right on this one. They're like, he's just wearing him out. He'll take over. He's just wearing him out. And let's talk about Merab. I mean, he looked good. He looked very good. What I will say is, so did Henry Cejudo. So let's talk about Henry Cejudo. Obviously, Merab, all right, let me talk about Merab, then we'll go to Henry. Merab looked very good. The fact that he was able to get this win the way he did with 90% striking was impressive. His striking looked good. The forward pressure was good. He was not a boring wet blanket, which I thought he would be. He came forward. He struck with Cejudo. He dropped Cejudo. He didn't get officially dropped, but he stumbled a little bit. And he looked good. We knew the pace would be there. We knew the pressure would be there. We knew the wrestling would be there as well. But we didn't know that the striking would be there and the game plan would be there. So good for Merab. He should get a title shot. I think you can officially say he's no longer boring. He has an incredible social media presence. He's a funny guy. And he's showing us. This is not the Jose Aldo fight where he held Jose against the cage for 15 minutes. He's showing us, I'm willing to mix it up. Give me my title shot. So he should get a title shot. Let's talk about Cejudo, though. Should he retire? He's 37. He did have moments of success in this fight. He was sick in this fight. You could tell he was sick. He was sniffling all week, a little nasally. He was sick. But he had moments of success. He looked good early. Very good early. Some of those clean wrestling exchanges when he was fresh, you could tell there were sort of different levels, if you will. His striking looked great. He cracked Merab big time. Did he drop Merab? I'm forgetting. They basically dropped each other, but I think Henry Cejudo dropped Merab. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But he looked good early. I don't think he should retire, but I also don't think he's ever going to win the title again or be close to it. So then he's just doing prize fights for prize fight money. The problem is this weight class doesn't really have prize fights. It doesn't really have, what's the big marquee fight for Henry Cejudo here? I don't know what it is. Maybe you do former champ versus former champ. You do Henry Cejudo versus Volkanovski. But Henry Cejudo is already small as shit. And then he's going to go up another weight class. Keep in mind, this was 135 pounds. Cejudo was the 125-pound champion and the 135-pound champion. It's just such a shame because when Henry Cejudo retired and did a 3-year break, those were the best 3 years of his career, and he gave them up. And it sucks because that Henry Cejudo, when he retired, beats Merab. What we saw here was a 37-year-old Henry Cejudo who has fought one time in 4 years. That's what we saw. A little bit behind, had some success, but you can tell. Just wasn't the younger, fresher, hungry fighter. I don't know if he should retire or not. I can't speak for him. I would say Henry Cejudo certainly has the skill set still today to beat everybody outside of the top 5. But this guy's a former Olympian, former 2-time champion, one of the best to ever do it at the lower weight classes. I don't think he's in it for the prize fights. I think he's in it to win the title, and he's not going to win the title again. It just, some things just pass people up, and this passed him up. It's gone. This is a 3-round fight. If it was a 5-round fight, it was going to get worse. So I don't know if Henry should retire, but I think he knows and we know he's not going to be champion again. And then when you get a guy like him who's just trying to build a legacy and try to be the best to ever do it, that's what matters. Can I be champ again? No. Well, then what am I doing here? So I hope he doesn't retire. I do want him to get a couple of prize fights win. Give him a good win. You know what? Let Sean O'Malley lose and then give him Sean O'Malley. Just let's give him another big marquee fight. Hopefully he wins and he could ride. A lot of people don't like Henry Cejudo, the whole Triple C thing, but I love the guy. What he's accomplished is absolutely insane. And he fought really, for a 37-year-old who's fought once in 4 years, he looked really good last night, but obviously, Merab dominated that win. Here's his Matt Hughes pickup. Walked him around the octagon. It's funny because Jacob's like, that's disrespectful. Like, that's embarrassing. You're an Olympian. I mean, he's doing what he's got to do. Look at the ton hanging out. Good for Merab. And good for Zuck. This arrow's pointing at Mark Zuckerberg. This dude just loves fights. Just loves fights. What a normal... And this wasn't robotic. This wasn't fake. This is just who he is. He just loves fights. He enjoyed every minute of him, and good for him. If anybody has had a glow up, it's Mark Zuckerberg. We're not talking about the money because dude's a gazillionaire and fine. But just his public perception and him as a human, the glow up is insane. Just 2 years ago, you guys are talking about he's a lizard-skinned robot. And now the dude's like laughing, smiling, just loving the sport the same way we love it. So good for Mark Zuckerberg. Yeah, and the UFC, they didn't Taylor Swift him. They didn't like go to him constantly. But you'd catch glimpses of him in the background. He's just laughing, smiling, having a good time. He walked out Alexander Volkanovski and wasn't weird about it. So good for Zuck. And you know what? It'll be interesting to see what the future is with his involvement. My neighbor came over last night. He has he got an Oculus Quest. That's the VR goggles, like a little while ago. And he said he watched a fight night. He put the goggles on. Then you can go into the arena. And he said there was like bleachers, multiple seats you can sit in to watch the fights. Or you can climb the cage and sit on the top of the cage and watch the fights like that. And literally you can look around. And that's got to be incredible. And I'm not wearing goggles for a pay-per-view. That's just nuts. But it will be interesting to see. This guy loves the sport. Obviously a titan in technology. Facebook owns Oculus, if you didn't know that. Or they're not called Oculus anymore. What the hell are they called now? MetaQuest. It'll be interesting to see what evolutions are coming. I remember, here's a little bit of a nerd rant. I remember watching in like mid-2000s, watching UFC pay-per-views. And they had the broadcast. You buy it on your TV, or you could buy it at one point in time through Yahoo. And then there were alternative streams. The UFC would have different camera angles. So you could watch it on your TV in one camera angle, the normal broadcast. And then you, on your laptop or your computer, whatever the hell, you could watch a different camera angle. It was also available in 4K. I watched the Khabib Conor fight in 4K. It's bizarre to me that the UFC has this deal with ESPN, the leader in sports broadcasting. 4K is not an option, which is nuts. If anything, sport would benefit from 4K. It's one like this. And there's no alternative feeds. I would love in my media room to put up a couple extra TVs, have different feeds going, and so you can see the corner cam, That would be incredible. Big main TV, left blue corner camera, the right, the red corner camera. That would be an incredible experience. It's a little weird that the UFC is so many steps behind, while the NFL, I mean, there's levels to sports. The NFL's on a different level. The NFL's doing the Toy Story broadcast. Anyway, Zuck loves fights. This is another interesting fight. It was not exciting. Ian Garry's catching a lot of shit online for being in a boring fight. I don't blame him for being in a boring fight. Jeff Neal did not bring it to Ian. So then the question is, did Ian win or did Jeff lose? Because when Jeff did march forward and throw, he had some success. He landed some strikes, but he didn't throw in combinations. He just would throw a few at a time. And he didn't bring the fight to Ian, which sucks because I think all of us were rooting against Ian. What I will say is Ian redeemed himself in this fight in a lot of people's eyes. He was respectful. He wasn't the chaotic, shit-talking guy that's trying to ruin your life by insinuating you're a child abuser. And he looked good last night. Ian's defense is incredible. His ability, there were a few exchanges against the cage where Jeff Neal threw 6-7 punches. And Ian was Anderson Silva style, moving out of the way and then throwing back. And he looked very good doing it. You love him or hate him, Ian Garry is a very good fighter. I do wish that Jeff Neal came forward and put it on him. I wish Jeff Neal tried to take that dude's head off, stayed in his face, and just made it dirty and ugly. Would he have won? I have no idea. He might have been knocked out. Ian's defense is so good. But I would have liked to have seen that. But good for Jeff Neal. He knows that he didn't do that. His Instagram is just literally, he posted a giant L. And he was like, regardless of the results, I lost this fight. I wish I came forward. I wish I did more. You know, he was very open about the fact that he lost that fight. So good for him for acknowledging that. But, you know, Jeff Neal or Ian Garry does it again. He just keeps winning fights. We've only ever seen him in danger one time. I don't know who they give him next, but I do want them to give him somebody. I mean, he called out Colby Covington, and the Colby that just fought Leon Edwards, Ian smokes his ass. But the Colby that fought Usman, that would be an amazing fight. So I don't know who they're going to give him next. I don't know if they should give him Colby, but I mean, Ian Garry seems to be like he's here to stay for a little while. Co-main event. Let's talk about a couple things. One, up until this fight, actually, including this fight, not a single underdog won. This was the 11th fight in a 12-fight broadcast. Not a single underdog won, and frankly, not a single underdog had some success outside of Mackenzie Dern. Jacob's lock of the week was Paulo Costa. If you don't know Jacob, what he does is he picks an underdog every week, makes it his lock. Paulo Costa was a plus 205 underdog. And you know what? In that first round, it was looking good. He was having success marching forward. He landed some big strikes. This is the moment he almost ended the fight. Spinning back kick or spinning wheel kick just cracks Robert Whittaker. He stumbles, is almost out cold, and there's literally only 4 seconds left on the clock. If there was 10, 15 seconds left, well, I don't know. This referee didn't stop the Mackenzie Dern fight, but it was very close to getting stopped. It may have been stopped if there was just a little bit more time. I think every single person on planet Earth, except that one judge, thinks that Paulo Costa won that round. It was a relatively close round, and then that happened. But one judge gave the first round to Robert Whittaker. One judge gave the round where Robert Whittaker was almost unconscious. They watched it, and they're like, yep, that guy won the fight, won that round. Check. It was, the right man won the fight. Robert Whittaker won the decision, should have won the decision. I would have scored it for him. Very close fight. I see a lot of people arguing that Paulo Costa won. I'll listen to the arguments, but personally, if I was judging, I would have given it to Robert Whittaker. Lost the first, took over the next 2 rounds. And I think the last round was razor thin, and it came down to the last 30, 40 seconds, and Robert Whittaker did more. So I give him the fight. But I do think judges should be held accountable, even for weird rounds. Like, yes, the right guy won the fight. It ended up working out. But there is a problem, and I would love to hear how that judge gave that round to Robert Whittaker. Hello, judge. I'm forgetting his name. I looked it up. Hello, sir. When Robert Whittaker was 99% unconscious, and then he stood up and was like falling over and didn't know which corner it was, why did you think he won that round? What specifically do you think he did to win that round? I'd love to hear it, because I don't know what he did. But either way, this was a dogfight. Paulo Costa has yet to ever be in a boring fight. And you know what? If he was more active, he wins this fight. And I don't even mean active in the fight. Obviously, in the fight, all he had to do was move forward more, and he was going to win. Robert Whittaker has no power, but he's got great footwork. Yeah, he's well done. He moves around, then he blitzes forward. If Paulo Costa just kept coming at Robert, put the pressure on him, Paulo clearly had more power, good cardio, but he did start to slow down. Some of that is age, and some of that is the fact that he never fights. He never fights. If Paulo Costa fought more, he would have won this fight. But good on Robert. I'm a giant Robert Whittaker fan. I picked him to win this fight. I'm a giant Robert Whittaker fan. I'm happy he won this fight. I'd love to see him fight Dricus again, because I can't believe he lost that fight. But either way, let me know if I'm nuts or if there was just no way Robert Whittaker won that first round. And here's the main event. Obviously, we all saw it. It looked like Volkanovski was a little, I don't want to say scared, because I don't think he's scared of anything, but it did look a little bit like Alexander Volkanovski wanted nothing to do with the power. He flinched a little more than he normally does. He didn't really shoot any takedowns, which was somewhat bizarre to me. You just got knocked out cold 3 months ago. It was way too soon to come back. I don't know why you didn't engage the wrestling more. Probably because he was worried that Elliott's takedown defense was going to be a problem, which it may have been. And the first round was close, and every single judge, all 3 judges, gave the first round to Alexander Volkanovski. But not much happened. And I think Volkanovski won that first round because he literally, for the first 3 minutes, was the only one throwing strikes at all. Elliott did nothing the first couple of minutes. So Volkanovski won it just by controlling and landing some strikes. And the second round, the power took over. Elliott Topuria knocked Volkanovski out cold. This is Volkanovski slumped over unconscious, and he was there for a little bit longer than all of us would have liked. So the question becomes, should Alexander Volkanovski retire? Should and will are 2 very different things. Should, my opinion, yes. Or ask the UFC, hey, listen, guys, I'm one of the best to ever do it. I'm probably the best featherweight of all time. I've saved multiple cards for you on short notice. I've done all the things. Just give me somebody I can beat the shit out of, and let's move on. Give me Josh Emmett, although Josh has that big power now too. Give me Bryce Mitchell, that dork. Give me somebody that I can just smoke, and then let me retire right off into the sunset. That's what should happen. 2 knockout losses in a row like that. It's just, he's older. It doesn't get easier from here. It doesn't get better. His chin is not going to be better tonight or last night was the best his chin is. That's the best it was. Tomorrow, it's going to be worse than it was yesterday. The day after that, it's going to be worse than it was the day before. That's it. Every day, his chin gets a little worse because he's getting older, and that's what happens. And he's been knocked out 2 times in 3 months. That doesn't help your chin. So now we end up in a situation, and unfortunately, UFC is not a sport that you can just walk away from gracefully. Only Khabib and Robbie Lawler. Those are the only 2 people I can think of that walked away from the sport on a high note gracefully. Everybody else tries, and then they end up leaving their gloves in the octagon, and people cheer for them after they got, I mean, look at, you can say Korean Zombie got a beautiful send-off, and that was because of the crowd, because in the fight, he got the shit kicked out of him. I think Volkanovski should get one very, very winnable fight and retire like that. This guy, what he has done for us as fans is incredible. Fought anybody, anywhere, anytime, short notice, did all the things. Give him a proper send-off. Now, will he? No. No, Volkanovski's not going to go out well. Volkanovski's going to lose a lot of fights, get knocked out a couple of times. He is not going to go out well. He'll probably change weight classes. He'll probably be like, oh, if I go up to 55, that'll save my chin. And it's not going to go well for him. And the reason I think that is because he was very vocal. When he stepped up on short notice to fight Islam, he was like, I was drinking. I didn't have a fight booked. I was depressed. If I don't have a fight booked, I get depressed. I don't know what to do with my life. I'm obsessed with this. I was drinking every day. This is his entire life. He needs to learn how to enjoy life outside of fighting. And I don't know how to learn that. I don't know what he can do to get that out of his system, but the reality is that is in his system. And that's who he is at his core, in his DNA. His entire purpose in life, at least in his mind, is fighting. And without fighting, without a fight booked, in his words, he's depressed, he's drinking every day, and he doesn't know what to do with himself. That doesn't sound like a guy that's going to step away on top and say, you know what? I've accomplished everything. I've got 4 beautiful daughters. Let me just spend my time with them. That doesn't sound like that guy. That sounds like a guy that's going to go out like Chuck Liddell did. Too many fights, too much damage, talking a little weird a couple years later. We love Volk. Hopefully they don't do the rematch. On one hand, he's the best to ever do it and has earned a rematch. On the other hand, nothing's changing in this rematch. Nothing will change in this rematch. Not a single thing. Nothing. The only success Volkanovski had in this fight is early when he was the only one throwing punches. Outside of that, he had no success. Do not run this back. For the sake of Volkanovski, give him a winnable fight. Let him retire on top. One of the most likable, best guys we have ever seen fight in the octagon. Guys, become a premium member. If you go to WeWantPicks.com and you click Become a Member at the top, it's only $10. You're going to unlock picks, bets, tools, round line leans. You're going to unlock so much for that $10. And the people who paid $10, we have over 3,000 paying premium members. This weekend, the Friday, the Saturday, going into UFC 298, we had, I think, 200 and something new people sign up. Every single one of those people spent $10. And every single one of those people got way more than $10 in their pocket. Way more. Paid for years worth of premium membership. We sell 1-year subscription at $100. Crushed this card. Jacob crushed all 5 cards this year. I have hit the safety parlay on every single card this year. 11 of 12, 9 in a row. It hits at a 73% event win percentage. The safety parlay is the beacon of stability in a pretty interesting sport to bet on. Unlock this at WeWantPicks.com. Just click Become a Member at the top. You're also going to get tools like the line movement tracker. You're going to get detailed data, metrics, and analytics, and so much more. WeWantPicks.com. Click Become a Member at the top.